Duke, I just want to ask real quick because they did go on the road and they beat Louisville after being down by 14 points in the first half. And they did beat Auburn at home, one of 2 wins that the ACC was able to get in the ACC SEC Challenge. I think we have to talk about them beating Auburn and kind of the statement that it made, because we've seen Duke get close a couple times, guys. We saw they were a possession away from beating Kansas. They were a couple of possessions away from, like, they hit one open 3 in those last 4 minutes in the Champions Classic, and they find a way to be able to beat Kentucky there. Like, I think that we are really close to being in a situation where, like, the Duke hype train is out of control. And I don't think people have realized just how good this team has a chance to be. They don't play another team right now. Let me take that back. Clemson and Illinois are the only 2 teams that they play right now that are ranked inside the top 30 on KenPom as of today.
Why is that game scheduled there in February 22nd? Why is that?
They had a weekend off and they wanted to try to get to New York, and they weren't able to get to New York at the start of the calendar. Duke always wants to play a game in New York City at Madison Square Garden.
I'm not mad at that. Well, I'm going back to another point. I'm not mad at that scheduling decision. I actually really like it. Is Fox doing that game?
Power of Scheyer.
Power of Scheyer.
Mm-hmm.
Duke and Illinois. By the way, best New York City weekend in February of college basketball that I can remember. I'm in February. Saturday night, Cooper Flagg and Duke taking on Illinois at the Garden at 8 o'clock. Just get a hotel room by the Garden and come right back for noon the next day for Rick Pitino and St. John's meeting Dan Hurley in Connecticut.
That'll be fun.
I mean, forget it. Forget it with the fans. Forget it with the frivolity there. Here's the thing with Duke. Last night was as big of a statement for me as the win over Auburn. And you might be saying, how could you ever say that? Here's why. Did you watch college basketball this past week? Did you see how teams fared on the road? It was ugly.
Yep.
Ask Penn State. Ask Purdue how they fared at Penn State. Ask Illinois, who had it wrapped against Northwestern, how things went in Evanston for them. Ask Kansas how things went on the road for the Jayhawks. Winning on the road, the Big 12, Big East battle, the home team won every game but one.
Mm-hmm.
Winning on the road in this sport is really, really, really difficult. And Duke has Cooper Flagg sit down with 10 minutes and change on the clock. It's a close game. They proceed to go on an 18-2 run.
Yeah, they did.
Concanipple hits shots. Big, the game changer from the previous games. Tyrese Proctor has become a terrific guard who's more consistent and understanding of his role. And to me,
Malik Brown.
To me, that's exactly it.
He is so important to what they do. Every
team needs a guy who is this junkyard dog type of fixture. Back when, I'll give a Big East comp here for just a moment. Forgive me, but it's because I went to Seton Hall. When Seton Hall won the Big East championship in 2016, in that wild recruiting class with Whitehead, Carrington, and Delgado, they had a kid named Ishmael Sanogo who just turned the water off. It's Malik Brown turns the water off of whoever he guards. I love him. I'm going to use a phrase from a coach. He's an unmade bed guy. He's a guy who, when he gets out of his bed, it's unmade. It looks, kind of looks like who is this guy? Like what's his game all about? But then if you laid down in that bed, you would realize how comfy it is. Malik Brown is who I want on my team. He just gets out of bed and he plays, man. That guy's a hooper.
I thought that where you were going to go with that was Malik Brown is who I want in my bed. And I was like, man, slow down here, man. Flynn, I don't know where you're going with this.
Hey, it wasn't that, Rob. It wasn't that. Don't make it about that.
Hey, I will say this.
Unmade bed guy. You know what? Devin
Carter. Oh no, I
get.
Trust me.
He just kind of shows up and plays. Like he just. I love.
You know what the best part about it is?
The game. T.O. Malik Brown plays the game the right way.
Yeah, the best part about it is, Fana, he doesn't give a shit about getting shots.
He doesn't care about scoring. In a world where everybody cares about how many points they score, I love this kid. I think he's just. I want him on my team because he's going to do all the little things right. You're right, Rob. He's invaluable to what they do.
Mm-hmm. Zion James too.
He had some big buckets.
Yeah.
Another thing too, like
right. It's not just you, Rob. Everyone's messing it up. Sion
James. Yeah, Sion James. He had a big bucket there at the end. But when Cooper went on the bench, this is something that I think Duke can learn from. Cooper went on the bench. They created some offense from a couple of steals, and they got out in transition. It was like a 13-2 run. But then they started running some offense. And it doesn't have to be all guys. Look, when your team is that talented individual, you don't have to run mind-bending stuff. But you can change sides of the floor once. And that's where you saw Tyrese Proctor. He was a little more effective because he was attacking a closeout there on the left side of the floor. So like that could be something where, hey, maybe I could put Cooper in that position, or maybe I could put somebody else in, just move the defense a little bit before attacking. But a lot to take away from that. Louisville came out on fire. And for some reason, man, like they've had spurts of great shooting. Louisville just hasn't been able to throw it in the ocean this year. And it's so strange because all those guys, wherever they came from, they were good shooters.
I have a theory on that. And
okay.
It's part of the reason I really feel for Louisville fans is that I think the Corin Johnson injury is hurting them a little bit more than people realize. They don't really have a breaky down guy, right? Like they have a lot of guys that can kind of space. They have a good solid
He's been
point.
Good.
He's been good, but when you think of Chucky Hepburn, you don't think, okay, I got a guy that's going to get in the paint every single time he wants and be able to kind of take a defense apart by himself. He's like a defensive guy. He'll get you into your stuff. He'll make open shots. He'll make the right reads. They don't really have that guy that can just get in the lane and mess everything up, which means that you can kind of stay home on the shooters, which means that all of the stuff that they run, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of create those open. I don't, maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but I think that's one guy that they're missing. And like, they're down to 7 players, man. They lost 2 starters to season-ending injuries, and they still don't have Abubakar Traore back. It's just
his arm's broken.
Yeah,
and people forget too, like they had 2 guys that came over with the intention of redshirting because they were hurt.
Mm-hmm. So
they
brought
Rogers and Ali Khalifa. So they're down to 9 players, period, for the rest of the year. Tough situation.
Guys in practice that aren't walk-ons right now. It's a tough spot to be in, and I think it hasn't gone the way they wanted it to go, but I don't think it's fair to judge anything about like Pat Kelsey or this team based off of what's happening. They lost 5 guys, man.
Hold on, man. Hold on. Let's also put it in perspective here, where they're coming from. Louisville fans should be thrilled that they're competing every night, and at least they're in games. So like, they've done a fantastic job of putting together a roster that can compete every single night. Are they going to win every single night? No, they're not, but they have competed every single time, making it to the Battle for Atlantis finals. They've just dropped 3 in a row. Oklahoma is much better than everybody thought. Then they played Ole Miss at home. Ole Miss is Final Four potential good. And then they play Duke. Now you play UTEP at home. You're at Kentucky, big one. And then you start conference play. I think Louisville's very much top half of the ACC.